The slap came out of nowhere. 1 second I was standing in my own kitchen, the kitchen where my wife Miriam used to hum while making breakfast, and the next my son's hand cracked across my face so hard I tasted blood. "Either you wash my car and work as a gardener," Adrian said, his eyes cold as winter steel, "or you can pack your things and go live on the street." I stood there, my cheek burning, my heart shattering into a million pieces. This was my son, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, the child I'd held when he cried after his first heartbreak. And now he was looking at me like I was trash he needed to throw out. Behind him, Cassandra, his girlfriend, laughed. Actually laughed. Her manicured nails drummed against the counter as she watched me with those predator eyes, waiting to see if I'd break. "What's wrong, old man?" she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Cat got your tongue? Or are you finally realizing you're useless?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab my son by the shoulders and shake him until the real Adrian, my Adrian, came back. But instead, I just stood there, feeling smaller than I'd ever felt in my entire 63 years of life. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. 6 months. That's how long it had been since Miriam died. 6 months since cancer ripped the love of my life away from me, leaving nothing but photographs and the ghost of her perfume in our bedroom. 6 months since my world turned gray. And in those 6 months, my son had become a stranger. It started small. Little comments about how I needed to move on and stop being so emotional. Then Cassandra moved in without asking me in my own house, and suddenly I wasn't the man of the house anymore. I was the problem, the burden, the old fool who couldn't let go of his dead wife. They took over my home like invaders. Adrian's clothes scattered everywhere. Cassandra's makeup crowding Miriam's bathroom counter. Their voices echoing through rooms that used to hold love and laughter, now filled with complaints and demands. "Make us dinner, Dad. Clean up this mess, it's embarrassing. Can you be quiet? We're trying to watch TV." I became invisible in my own life. A ghost haunting the halls of a house that no longer felt like home. But the slap? That was new. That was the line I never thought my son would cross. "Did you hear me?" Adrian stepped closer, his breath hot on my face. "I'm giving you a choice. You want to stay under this roof? Then you earn it. Wash my car. Tend the garden. Cook our meals. Make yourself useful for once in your pathetic life." Pathetic. My own son called me pathetic. I looked past him to the mantel, where Miriam's picture sat in its silver frame. Her smile forever frozen in time. Her eyes, warm and gentle, the way they always were when she looked at me. What would she say if she could see this? What would she do? "Adrian," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I'm your father." "Then act like a man," he shot back. "Stop crying about Mom. Stop living in the past. She's gone, Dad. Gone. And you sitting around here moping isn't bringing her back." Something inside me snapped. Not anger, worse. Resignation. The kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes when you realize the person you love most has already left you long before this moment. "I need some air," I said quietly. Cassandra snorted. "Yeah, run away. That's all you're good at anyway." I walked out of that kitchen, my face still stinging, my heart bleeding out with every step. I went to my bedroom, the room I'd shared with Miriam for 41 years, and I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. The house felt like a tomb. Cold, empty, suffocating. And for the first time since Miriam died, I realized something terrifying. I had nothing left. No wife. No son. No home that felt like home. Just walls and memories and a future that looked like a long, dark hallway with no light at the end. I pulled out my phone and stared at the screen. Who could I call? Who would even care? Nobody. The answer was nobody. That night, as I lay in bed listening to Adrian and Cassandra laughing in the living room, I made a decision. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't keep pretending that things would get better, that my son would wake up one day and remember who I was, what we used to be. I had to leave. But where would I go? I was a 63-year-old widower with a small pension that barely covered groceries. I had no savings. Those had gone to Miriam's medical bills and funeral. I had no friends close enough to take me in. I had nothing except the clothes on my back and a heart full of grief. The next morning I packed a bag. Just one. Some clothes, Miriam's wedding ring that I kept in a box by the bed, and a photograph of us from our honeymoon. That was it. That was all I had left of a life that once meant something. I walked downstairs, my bag over my shoulder, ready to face whatever hell waited for me outside these walls. Adrian was at the kitchen table, eating cereal like this was just another Tuesday. Like he hadn't destroyed his father the night before. "Where do you think you're going?" he asked, not even looking up. "Away," I said simply. He finally raised his eyes, and for just a second, just a heartbeat, I thought I saw something human flicker there. Regret maybe. Or guilt. But then Cassandra walked in, and whatever softness had been there vanished like smoke. Good, she said, pouring herself coffee. Finally. Maybe now we can have some peace around here. I looked at my son one last time. Waiting. Hoping. Praying he'd stop me. That he'd stand up, tell Cassandra to shut her mouth, and beg me to stay. But he didn't. He just went back to eating his cereal. So I walked out the door into the cold morning air, with no idea where I was going or what would happen next. Behind me I heard the door slam shut. And with it, the last thread connecting me to the life I used to know. What would you do if your own child turned their back on you in your darkest hour? Would you fight back or would you walk away? Drop your answer in the comments below. Asterisk asterisk. I stood on the sidewalk, my bag feeling heavier with each passing second, and stared down the empty street ahead of me. Somewhere out there was a future I couldn't see yet. Somewhere out there was a life that didn't involve being treated like garbage by the people who were supposed to love me. But first I had to survive. And I had no idea how I was going to do that. The streets don't care if you used to have a home. They don't care if you raised a son or buried a wife. They just swallow you whole and spit you out when there's nothing left. I walked for hours that first day, my bag cutting into my shoulder, my feet aching in shoes that weren't made for wandering. Every step took me further from the house I'd lived in for 30 years, further from the life I'd built with Miriam, further from any sense of who I used to be. By afternoon, I found myself sitting on a bench in the park where Miriam and I used to walk every Sunday. The same bench where I'd proposed to her 42 years ago. The same bench where we'd sit and watch the sunset, her hand in mine, talking about dreams we thought would last forever. Now I was alone. Just me and the pigeons and the sound of children playing in the distance, their laughter like knives in my chest. I pulled out my phone. 3 missed calls. All from Adrian. For a moment my heart jumped. Maybe he'd changed his mind. Maybe he realized what he'd done. Maybe there was still a chance to fix this nightmare. I called him back. Dad, he answered on the first ring. Where are you? Does it matter? I asked. Look, you can come back. But you need to understand something. His voice was calm, almost businesslike. Things have to change. Cassandra and I, we're building a life here. And you can be part of it, but only if you respect our space. You do what we ask, you keep your opinions to yourself, and we'll make sure you have a place to sleep. I felt something die inside me right then. Something I didn't even know was still alive. You're serious, I whispered. You actually want me to come back as your servant? I'm offering you a roof over your head, he said, irritation creeping into his tone. Most people would be grateful. Most people wouldn't treat their father like hired help. He sighed like I was exhausting him. You know what, Dad? Do whatever you want. But don't come crying to me when you're sleeping under a bridge. The line went dead. I sat there, staring at my phone, trying to process what had just happened. My son, my only child, had just given me an ultimatum. Be his servant or be homeless. How did we get here? How did the boy who used to hug me and say, I love you, Daddy, turn into this cold, cruel stranger? I thought back to when Adrian was young. He wasn't always like this. He used to be kind, thoughtful. He'd help Miriam with the dishes without being asked. He'd check on me when I was sick. He'd call just to say hello. But somewhere along the way something shifted. Maybe it was when he went to college and met all those kids with money and ambition. Maybe it was when he started dating girls who cared more about his potential earnings than his character. Maybe it was when Miriam got sick and he couldn't handle watching her fade away, so he built walls around his heart and never tore them down. Or maybe, and this was the thought that hurt most, maybe I'd failed him somehow. Maybe I hadn't taught him the right lessons. Maybe I'd been too soft, too forgiving, too willing to overlook the small cruelties that eventually grew into big ones. Miriam would have known what to do. She always did. She had this way of cutting through nonsense and seeing straight to the heart of things. She would have pulled Adrian aside, looked him in the eye, and reminded him who he was, who we raised him to be. But Miriam wasn't here. And without her I was lost. As the sun started to set, reality crashed down on me like a wave. I had nowhere to go. No money for a hotel. No friends I could call at this hour. No plan beyond sitting on this bench and hoping the night wouldn't be too cold. I thought about calling Adrian back, swallowing my pride, accepting his offer. At least I'd have a bed to sleep in, even if it came with the cost of my dignity. But every time I reached for my phone, I heard Miriam's voice in my head. Not the weak, cancer-ravaged voice from her final days, but the strong, steady voice from before. The voice that used to tell me, Silas Wren, you are worth more than you think. Don't you ever let anyone make you feel small. I couldn't go back. Not like that. Not as a broken man crawling back to beg for scraps of respect from people who had none to give. So I stayed on that bench. All night, shivering in the cold, watching strangers pass by without a second glance, wondering how my life had crumbled so completely in such a short time. When morning came, stiff and exhausted, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't survive on a park bench forever. I needed work. I needed money. I needed a purpose beyond grief and regret. I spent the next 3 days searching for jobs. Any jobs. I walked into restaurants, grocery stores, warehouses, anywhere that might hire a 63-year-old man with no recent work experience and desperation in his eyes. The answer was always the same. We'll call you if something opens up. Which was just a polite way of saying no. On the 4th day, hungry and running out of options, I found myself outside an employment agency that specialized in caregiver positions. The sign in the window read, "Immediate openings. All experience levels welcome." I walked inside. The woman at the desk looked me up and down, taking in my wrinkled clothes and hollow eyes. "You hear about the caregiver position?" "Yes, ma'am. It's a live-in job. 12-hour shifts. Patient is elderly, difficult, demanding. Most people quit within a week. You think you can handle that?" I thought about Adrian's slap. About Cassandra's laugh. About sleeping on a bench in the cold. About losing Miriam and having nothing left to lose. "I can handle it," I said. She handed me a form. "Fill this out. If you're hired, you start tomorrow." I filled it out with shaking hands, my pen moving across the paper like I was signing away one life and stepping into another. The next day, I showed up at the address they'd given me. A massive estate on the edge of town, hidden behind iron gates and tall hedges. The kind of place that screamed money and power and secrets. A woman in a nurse's uniform let me in. "You must be Silas. I'm Denise. I'll show you to Mr. Alcott's room. Fair warning, he doesn't like strangers. He doesn't like much of anything, actually. But he needs help, and you're what we've got." She led me through hallways lined with expensive art and antique furniture, up a grand staircase and down a long corridor to a door at the end. She knocked. "Mr. Alcott? Your new caregiver is here. Send him in," a gruff voice called from inside. "And then leave us alone." Denise pushed the door open and gestured for me to enter. I stepped inside, my heart pounding, and found myself face to face with the man who would change everything. Victor Alcott sat in a leather chair by the window, a blanket over his lap despite the warm room. He was old, maybe 80, with sharp eyes that looked like they could peel back your skin and see straight through to your bones. "So," he said, studying me, "you're the one they set. You look like hell." "I've had better days," I admitted. He laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "At least you're honest. Most people who walk through that door lie through their teeth, pretending they care about me when really they're just counting the days until I die so they can cash in." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. Victor leaned forward, his gaze boring into me. "Why are you here, Silas? What are you running from?" And just like that, standing in front of this stranger who saw too much, I felt the walls crack. "My son," I whispered. "I'm running from my son." Victor didn't say anything at first. He just watched me with those hawk eyes, like he was deciding whether I was worth his time or just another disappointment waiting to happen. "Your son?" he finally said. "What did he do? Steal from you? Lie to you?" "Worse," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "He stopped seeing me as his father." Victor nodded slowly, like he understood something I hadn't said out loud. "Sit down, Silas. You look like you're about to collapse." I sat in the chair across from him, my body sinking into the cushions like I weighed 1,000 pounds. Every muscle ached. Every bone felt brittle. I was so damn tired. "Tell me," Victor said. "And don't leave anything out. I've got nothing but time, and I'm curious what kind of hell brings a man to my door looking like you do." So I told him. Everything. About Miriam. About the cancer that ate her alive while I watched, helpless. About the funeral where Adrian barely spoke to me. About Cassandra moving in like a virus, infecting my son with greed and cruelty. About the slap. About the ultimatum. About the bench in the park where I spent the night because I had nowhere else to go. By the time I finished, my throat was raw and my eyes burned with tears I refused to let fall. Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something I didn't expect. "Your son's not the problem." I looked up, confused. "What?" "Oh, he's a problem," Victor clarified. "But he's not the root. The root is that girl, Cassandra. She's a parasite. I've seen her type 1,000 times. They latch onto weak men, suck them dry, and move on to the next host. Your son? He's just collateral damage. He's still my son, I said. He still made his choice. True, Victor agreed. And choices have consequences. But here's what I've learned in my 82 years on this planet. People don't change unless they lose something they can't get back. Your son hasn't lost anything yet. He's got your house, that girl, and the delusion that he's in control. Until something breaks him, he'll stay exactly who he is right now. I wanted to argue. I wanted to defend Adrian, to say he was better than that. But deep down, I knew Victor was right. Enough about your son, Victor said, shifting in his chair. Let's talk about you. You're here because you need work, and I need someone who won't rob me blind or suffocate me with a pillow. Think you can manage that? Despite everything, I smiled. Just a little. I think so. Good. Your job is simple. Help me get around. Make sure I take my medications. Keep me company when I can't sleep. And most importantly, don't treat me like I'm already dead. I've got nurses for that. What I need is someone who'll talk to me like I'm still human. I can do that, I said. Then we've got a deal. He extended his hand and I shook it. His grip was surprisingly strong for a man his age. That first week was harder than I expected. Not because Victor was cruel, though he could be blunt to the point of brutality, but because being in that house, surrounded by wealth and luxury, reminded me of everything I'd lost. I had my own room. Small but comfortable, with a bed that didn't creak and a window that overlooked the garden. I had 3 meals a day, clean clothes, and a purpose. It was more than I'd had in months. But at night, lying in that bed, I'd think about Miriam. About how she used to curl up next to me, her head on my chest, her breathing soft and steady. About how I'd give anything, to have just one more day with her. Victor noticed. He always noticed. You're thinking about your wife again? He said one evening as I helped him into bed. How'd you know? Because you get this look on your face. Like you're somewhere else. Somewhere better. I nodded. 41 years we were married. 41 years of waking up next to her, and now there's just empty space. Victor was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I was married once. Long time ago. She died in childbirth. Took our son with her. I stared at him, stunned. He'd never mentioned this before. After that, he continued, I threw myself into work. Built an empire. Made more money than I could ever spend. Had relationships, some good, most bad. But none of them filled the hole. You know why? Why? Because grief isn't something you fix. It's something you carry. And the people who tell you to move on, or let go, they don't understand that moving on doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to live with the weight. His words hit me like a punch to the chest. Because he was right. I didn't want to move on from Miriam. I wanted to carry her with me, honor her memory, keep her alive in the only way I could. Thank you, I whispered. Victor waved a dismissive hand. Don't thank me. Just do your job and don't bore me to death with small talk. But I saw it. Just for a second. The flicker of something soft in his eyes. Something human. As the weeks passed, Victor and I fell into a rhythm. Mornings were for medications and breakfast. Afternoons were for reading. He loved classic literature and would have me read aloud while he listened with his eyes closed. Evenings were for conversation. And the conversations were where I learned who Victor Alcott really was. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was a man haunted by his own choices. A man who'd built an empire on the backs of people he'd betrayed. A man whose children despised him because he'd chosen money over love, power over presence. They come around sometimes, he told me one night. My son Robert. My daughter Caroline. They smile and pretend they care, but all they're really doing is measuring the mansion for furniture they plan to sell the second I'm dead. That's a harsh way to see it, I said. It's a realistic way to see it, he corrected. I made them who they are. Taught them that money matters most. Can't blame them for learning the lesson too well. Do you regret it? I asked. He looked at me for a long time. Every damn day. One night, about 2 months into the job, Victor had a bad spell. His breathing turned shallow. His skin went gray. I called for Denise, who called an ambulance, and we spent hours in the hospital waiting to see if he'd make it through. He did. Barely. When we got back to the estate, exhausted and shaken, Victor grabbed my arm. Silas, I need to tell you something. You need to rest, I said. I need to tell you this. His grip tightened. When I die, and it's coming soon, don't pretend otherwise, there's going to be chaos. My kids will tear each other apart fighting over my money. My lawyers will drag things out for years. And in the middle of all that, people are going to forget what really matters. What's that? I asked. Loyalty, he said. You've been more loyal to me in 2 months than my own children have been in 50 years. That's worth something. That's worth everything. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. I'm changing my will, Victor said. And when it's read, you're going to be shocked. But don't fight it. Don't refuse it. You've earned it. Victor. Promise me, he insisted. Promise me you won't refuse it. I looked into his eyes and saw something I recognized. Desperation. The same desperation I'd felt when I left Adrian's house with nothing but a bag and broken pride. I promise, I whispered. 3 weeks later, Victor Alcott died in his sleep. Peaceful. Quiet. With me sitting by his bedside, holding his hand the way no one else would. And when the will was read, the world turned upside down. The reading of the will took place in Victor's study, a room I'd only been in a handful of times. Dark wood paneling. Leather-bound books lining the walls. A massive desk that looked like it had witnessed decades of decisions that shaped fortunes and ruined lives. I sat in the back, uncomfortable in the cheap suit I'd borrowed from one of the estate workers. Around me were Victor's children, Robert and Caroline, along with their spouses, Victor's distant cousins, his lawyers, and a handful of business associates who'd flown in hoping for a piece of the pie. The air was thick with anticipation. Greed. Everyone in that room was calculating numbers in their heads, dividing up properties and investments before a single word had been read. Robert, Victor's son, sat front and center. Mid-50s. Expensive suit. The kind of man who'd never worked a day in his life but acted like he'd built empires with his bare hands. He kept glancing at me with this look, like he couldn't figure out why the hired help was allowed in the room. Caroline, Victor's daughter, was worse. Early 40s. Designer everything. She'd visited Victor exactly twice during my time there, both times staying less than 20 minutes before claiming she had prior commitments. Now she sat there dabbing fake tears with a handkerchief that probably cost more than my monthly salary. The lawyer, a stern woman named Miss Chin, cleared her throat. Thank you all for coming. I know this is a difficult time. Just read the will, Robert interrupted. We've all got places to be. Miss Chen's expression didn't change, but I saw something flash in her eyes. Disgust maybe. Or pity for a man whose son couldn't even pretend to mourn him properly. She opened the folder in front of her. The last will and testament of Victor Alcott. I, Victor Alcott, being of sound mind and body. We know the legal stuff, Caroline said. Get to the good part. Miss Chen's jaw tightened, but she continued. Very well. To my son, Robert Alcott, I leave the sum of $1. The room went silent. Robert's face turned red. What? To my daughter, Caroline Alcott, I leave the sum of $1. Caroline shot to her feet. This is a mistake. There's no way. To my cousins, nephews, and extended family members, Miss Chen continued, her voice steady, I leave nothing. You've had years to show me you cared about something other than my bank account. You failed. The room erupted. Shouting. Accusations. Robert lunged toward the desk, demanding to see the document. Caroline was crying, real tears this time, born from rage and disbelief. And me? I sat there, frozen, because I knew what was coming next. I could feel it in my bones. Miss Chen waited for the chaos to die down before speaking again. To Silas Wren, my caregiver and the only person who showed me genuine loyalty and kindness in my final months, I leave everything. My entire estate. All properties, investments, bank accounts, and business holdings. Everything. The silence that followed was deafening. Every eye in that room turned to me. Some confused. Some furious. Some looking at me like I'd just committed murder. That's impossible, Robert whispered. He's nobody. He can't. The will is valid, Miss Chin said. Witnessed, notarized, and legally binding. Mr. Alcott was of sound mind when he made this decision, and no amount of protest will change that. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The entire estate? Everything? Victor left you a letter, Miss Chin said, handing me an envelope. He wanted you to have it after the reading. My hand shook as I took it. Around me, people were still shouting. Robert was threatening lawsuits. Caroline was sobbing into her husband's shoulder. Lawyers were trying to restore order. But all I could focus on was the envelope in my hands. Victor's handwriting on the front, Silas. I stood up, needing air, needing space, needing to get away from the rage and disbelief swirling around me like a storm. Where do you think you're going? Robert blocked my path. You manipulated him. You poisoned his mind against his own family. I'm going to prove it. I'm going to take everything you stole. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw Adrian's face. Same entitlement. Same cruelty. Same inability to see past his own greed to the rot underneath. I didn't steal anything, I said quietly. Your father made his choice. Maybe you should ask yourself why he chose a stranger over his own blood. I walked past him, out of that study, down the hallway, and into the garden where I'd spent so many afternoons reading to Victor. The sun was setting. The air was cool. And in my hands was a letter from a man who'd given me everything when I had nothing. I opened it. Silas. Asterisk, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And if the reading went the way I think it did, you're probably confused as hell right now. Asterisk. Asterisk, here's the truth. I didn't leave you my fortune because you took care of me. I left it to you because you reminded me what it means to be human. To be loyal. To love someone even after they're gone. Asterisk. Asterisk, my children forgot that lesson. They saw me as a bank account with a heartbeat. You saw me as a man. That's rare. That's precious. That's worth more than anything I could put in a will. Asterisk. Asterisk, don't let them take this from you. Don't let them guilt you or threaten you or make you feel like you don't deserve it. You earn this. Not through manipulation or greed, but through simple human decency. Asterisk. Asterisk, use it well, Silas. Build a life that honors the people you've loved and lost. And if my children come knocking, asking for mercy they never showed me, remember this, loyalty isn't bought. It's given. And they gave me nothing. Asterisk. Take care of yourself, old friend. Victor. I folded the letter carefully, my eyes burning with tears I finally let fall. Victor had given me more than money. He'd given me back my dignity, my purpose, my future. And I wasn't going to let anyone, not Robert, not Caroline, not even Adrian, take that away from me. Do you think Silas deserves the inheritance, or should family always come first no matter what? Tell me what you think in the comments. I stood there in the garden, clutching Victor's letter, and made a decision. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to hide. I was going to face whatever came next with my head high and my heart strong. Because for the first time since Miriam died, I had something worth fighting for. The news spread fast. By the next morning, everyone knew. The billionaire had left everything to his nobody caregiver. The children got nothing. The family was in shambles. And Silas Wren, broken widower, park bench sleeper, cast-aside father, was suddenly one of the richest men in the state. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I spent hours walking through the estate, touching furniture that was now mine, standing in rooms that held more wealth than I'd seen in my entire life, trying to wrap my mind around what had happened. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. Any minute now, I'd wake up on that park bench, cold and hungry, and realize it had all been a dream. But morning came and I was still there. Still surrounded by Victor's legacy. Still the heir to an empire I never asked for. Miss Chin arrived around 9. We need to talk, she said, her expression serious. There's a lot of paperwork. A lot of legal issues to navigate. And there are people who are going to fight this. Robert and Caroline. Among others, she confirmed. They're already talking about contesting the will. Claiming you manipulated Mr. Alcott. Claiming he wasn't in his right mind. He was sharp until the day he died, I said. Anyone who spent 5 minutes with him knew that. I know, but they're going to try anyway. Desperation makes people do ugly things. She paused. Are you prepared for that? For the fight? I thought about it. Really thought about it. A few months ago I would have said no. I would have folded. Given them what they wanted just to avoid conflict. But Victor's letter had changed something in me. Reminded me of something Miriam used to say, don't let people walk all over you just because they're loud. Stand your ground, Silas. Let them fight, I said. I'm not giving this up without a battle. Miss Chin smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her. Good. Because Mr. Alcott chose you for a reason. And I'm going to make sure his wishes are honored. The first wave came 3 days later. Robert and Caroline showed up at the estate with their lawyers, demanding a meeting. I met them in the study. The same room where the will had been read. The same room where their world had collapsed. Robert looked older somehow. Haggard. Like he hadn't slept. Caroline's makeup couldn't hide the anger burning in her eyes. We want to settle this, Robert said, his voice strained. My father clearly wasn't thinking straight. But we're willing to be reasonable. Give us half of the estate and we won't drag this through the courts. I almost laughed. You think you deserve half of something your father explicitly said you didn't earn? He was our father, Caroline snapped. We're his children. Blood matters whether you like it or not. Blood matters when it's backed up by loyalty, I said. Victor told me about you. About how you only visited when you wanted something. About how you treated him like a checkbook instead of a person. Blood means nothing if you don't honor it. Robert's jaw clenched. You don't understand what it was like growing up with him. He was cold, distant. He chose work over us every single time. And now you, some stranger who knew him for a few months, think you can judge us. I'm not judging you, I said quietly. Victor already did that. And he made his choice. Caroline stood up, trembling with rage. We'll destroy you. We'll prove you manipulated him. We'll drag your name through the mud until there's nothing left. You'll wish you'd never walked through that door. Maybe, I said. But at least I'll know I earned what I have. Can you say the same? They left in a fury. Threats hanging in the air like smoke. Promises of lawsuits and investigations and ruin. But I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. That afternoon, I went to visit Miriam's grave. Something I hadn't done since I'd started working for Victor. I brought flowers, white roses, her favorite, and sat on the grass beside her headstone. I wish you could see this, Miriam, I whispered. I wish you could tell me if I'm doing the right thing. Victor left me everything and now his kids want to take it away. Adrian, God, I haven't even told you about Adrian yet. The wind rustled through the trees and for a moment, I could almost hear her voice. That soft, steady tone that always knew exactly what to say. You'd tell me to be strong, wouldn't you? I continued. You'd tell me that good things can come from bad situations. That sometimes the universe has a plan we can't see yet. I placed the roses against her headstone, my fingers tracing her name carved into the marble. Miriam Wren. Beloved wife. Forever in our hearts. I miss you, I said, my voice breaking. Every single day I miss you. And I'm so tired of being alone. But even as I said it, I realized something. I wasn't alone. Not really. Victor had given me more than money. He'd given me purpose. A reason to keep going when everything else had fallen apart. I stayed there until the sun started to set, talking to Miriam about everything. About the slap. About the park bench. About Victor's letter. About the fight I knew was coming. And when I finally stood to leave, I felt lighter. Like some of the weight I'd been carrying had lifted just a little. When I got back to the estate, there was a car in the driveway. A car I recognized. My stomach dropped. Adrian. He was standing by the front door, his hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. When he saw me, his expression shifted. Surprise, shame, something that might have been regret. Dad, he said. I stopped a few feet away from him, my keys in my hand, my heart pounding. What are you doing here? I heard about the inheritance. He looked down. Everyone's heard about it. It's all over the news. They're saying you're worth hundreds of millions. Of course. That's why he was here. Not because he missed me. Not because he realized what he'd done. But because I had money now. Is Cassandra with you? I asked. No. We broke up. He ran a hand through his hair. She left when she realized there wasn't going to be any money coming from you. Said I was a disappointment. Said I'd ruined everything. Part of me, the part that was still his father, wanted to comfort him. To tell him it would be okay. To invite him inside and fix whatever was broken between us. But the bigger part, the part that had learned hard lessons about loyalty and respect, stayed silent. Why are you here, Adrian? I asked again. He looked up and I saw tears in his eyes. Real tears. Because I was wrong. About everything. About how I treated you. About Cassandra. About Mom. My chest tightened. Don't bring your mother into this. I have to, he insisted. Because when she was dying, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't stand watching her suffer, so I pulled away. I threw myself into work, into relationships, into anything that would distract me from the fact that she was gone. And when she died, I blamed you. Blamed me? I whispered. For what? For still loving her. His voice cracked. For keeping her pictures everywhere. For talking about her like she was still here. It reminded me of what I'd lost and I couldn't deal with it. So I pushed you away. I let Cassandra convince me you were the problem. And he stopped, his whole body shaking. I hit you. I hit my own father, and I've been living with that every single day since. I stood there, frozen, watching my son fall apart in front of me. The son who'd slapped me. Who'd told me to live on the street. Who'd chosen greed over love. I'm sorry, Adrian sobbed. I'm so sorry, Dad. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I destroyed everything. But I had to come here and tell you that. I had to tell you that you were right and I was wrong, and I'm so damn sorry. Every instinct screamed at me to close the distance. To hug him. To tell him it was okay, that we could fix this. But Victor's words echoed in my mind. People don't change unless they lose something they can't get back. Are you here because you're sorry? I asked slowly, Or because you heard about the money? Adrian's face crumpled. I knew you'd think that, and I don't blame you. But Dad, I swear on Mom's grave, I didn't come here for money. I came here because I can't live with what I did. Because I can't sleep at night knowing I hurt you the way I did. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. When Cassandra left, he continued, she took everything. The car I made you wash. The furniture. She even took half the groceries. And when I was sitting in that empty house, surrounded by nothing, I finally understood what you must have felt. What it's like to lose everything. You still had the house, I pointed out. My house. He nodded. I know. And I'm giving it back to you. The deed's in your name anyway. I called a lawyer yesterday. I'm moving out this weekend. It's yours again. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation. Looking for the calculation I'd seen in Cassandra's eyes. But all I saw was my son. Broken. Ashamed. Desperate for a chance at redemption. I can't forgive you yet, I said quietly. Not yet. What you did, it cut too deep. I know. But. I paused, choosing my words carefully. I'm willing to see if you've really changed. Not today. Not tomorrow. But over time. If you can prove that you're not just sorry because you lost something but because you hurt someone you loved, then maybe we can rebuild. Adrian's eyes lit up with hope. Really? You'd give me another chance? One chance, I emphasized. And if you mess it up, if you show even a hint of greed or entitlement or disrespect, I'm done. Forever. Do you understand? Yes, he breathed. Yes, I understand. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. He moved like he was going to hug me, but I stepped back. Not yet. You've got work to do first. Real work. The kind that proves you've changed. He nodded, wiping his eyes. Okay. I'll do whatever it takes. Start by getting your life together, I said. Get a job. Support yourself. Don't come back here asking for handouts. When you can stand on your own 2 feet, when you can look me in the eye and tell me you've become the man your mother raised you to be, then we'll talk. I will, he promised. I swear I will. I watched him walk back to his car and something in my chest loosened. Just a little. He had a long way to go. And I didn't know if he'd actually follow through. But for the first time in months, I saw a glimpse of the son I used to know. The one who existed before grief and greed twisted him into someone unrecognizable. If your child betrayed you and then came back asking for forgiveness, would you give them a second chance? Or are some lines too broken to fix? Let me know what you'd do. That night, lying in my bed in Victor's estate, my estate now, I thought about everything that had happened. About how quickly life can fall apart and how unexpectedly it can come back together. I lost my wife. Lost my son. Lost my home and my dignity. But somehow, through Victor's kindness and loyalty, I'd found something new. Not a replacement for what I'd lost. Nothing could replace Miriam, but a foundation to build on. And maybe, just maybe, a chance to save my son from the darkness that had swallowed him whole. The phone on my nightstand buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This isn't over. You stole what's rightfully ours and we're going to prove it. Enjoy your money while you can. Robert. Or Caroline. Or both. I deleted the message and turned off my phone. Let them come. Let them fight. Let them try to tear down what Victor had built and what he'd entrusted to me. Because I wasn't the same man who'd slept on a park bench 3 months ago. I wasn't the broken widower who'd let his son slap him without consequence. I was Silas Wren. And I was done being pushed around. The lawsuit came 2 weeks later. Hand-delivered by a process server who looked apologetic as he handed me the thick manila envelope. Robert and Caroline Alcott versus Silas Wren. They were suing for the entire estate, claiming undue influence, mental incapacity, and fraud. The document was 47 pages of legal language that basically said I was a con artist who'd manipulated a dying old man. Miss Chin read through it in my study, her expression darkening with each page. They're throwing everything at the wall hoping something sticks. This is going to be ugly. How ugly? I asked. They'll dig into your past. Interview people who knew you. Try to paint you as desperate and opportunistic. They'll claim you isolated Victor from his family, poisoned him against them, manipulated him when he was vulnerable. She looked up. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the park bench. About the slap. About washing Adrian's car like a servant. I've been through worse. Good. Because they're also claiming you're mentally unfit to manage the estate. They're requesting psychological evaluations, financial audits, everything. They want to prove you're not capable of handling this kind of wealth. Something hot flashed through me. Anger. Pure, clean anger that burned away the fear. Let them try. The next few weeks were hell. Reporters camped outside the estate gates. News articles painted me as either a saint or a villain depending on which outlet you read. My phone rang constantly with journalists wanting statements, distant relatives I'd never met suddenly claiming we were close, and financial advisors offering to help me manage my new fortune. I ignored all of it. Miss Chin handled the press. The estate lawyers handled the business. And I focused on the one thing that mattered, preparing for the fight. The deposition started in March. Robert went first. I sat in a conference room watching him through a video feed as lawyers questioned him about his relationship with his father. We were close, Robert said, his voice smooth and practiced. My father and I spoke regularly. He valued my business advice. We had dinner together at least once a month. Miss Chin leaned over and whispered, "The visitor logs show he came to the estate exactly 3 times in the last year. None of those visits lasted longer than 30 minutes. I watched Robert lie with a straight face, weaving a story about a devoted son who'd been pushed aside by a manipulative caregiver. He described me as predatory and calculating. Said I'd convinced Victor that his children didn't love him. Said I'd kept them away deliberately. It was impressive, really. The way he could rewrite history without even flinching. Caroline's deposition was worse. She cried through most of it, talking about how much she missed her father, how close they'd been, how devastated she was that a stranger had stolen her inheritance. He changed after Silas arrived, she sobbed. He became cold, distant. He wouldn't take my calls. He told me I was only interested in his money. That's not true. I loved my father. I just wanted him to know I cared. Miss Chin showed me the phone records later. Caroline had called Victor 4 times in 6 months. Each call lasted less than 5 minutes. 3 of them ended with Victor hanging up on her. They're good, Miss Chin admitted. They're building a narrative that'll resonate with a jury. Devoted children pushed aside by a gold-digging stranger. It's compelling. It's also a lie, I said. Truth doesn't always win in court. Emotions do. And they're playing the emotion card hard. My deposition came next. I sat across from their lawyers, 3 of them all sharks in expensive suits, and answered questions for 8 hours straight. They asked about my financial situation before meeting Victor. About Miriam's medical bills. About my relationship with Adrian. About why I'd accepted the job as Victor's caregiver. Isn't it true that you were homeless when you met Mr. Alcott? One lawyer asked. I was sleeping on a park bench, I said. My son kicked me out of my house. And isn't it true that you were desperate for money? I was desperate for work. There's a difference. But you saw an opportunity, didn't you? An elderly billionaire with no one to care for him. A perfect target for someone in your situation. I looked him in the eye. I saw a lonely man who needed help. That's all. They tried to trip me up. Tried to make me admit I'd manipulated Victor or isolated him from his family. But every question had the same answer. I did my job. I was loyal. Victor made his own choices. By the end I was exhausted. But I'd held my ground. You did well, Miss Chin said afterward. They didn't get what they wanted. What happens now? Now we build our case. We show the court who Victor really was. We show them the visitor logs, the phone records, the conversations he had with his doctors about his children's greed. We let Victor speak for himself. The trial was set for June. 3 months away. 3 months of waiting, preparing, and watching Robert and Caroline's lawyers try to destroy me in the press. But something else happened during those 3 months. Something I didn't expect. Adrian showed up at the estate one Saturday morning, dressed in work clothes, dirt under his fingernails. What are you doing here? I asked, meeting him at the gate. You said I needed to get my life together, he said. So I did. I got a job at a landscaping company. It's hard work, pays barely anything, but it's honest. I studied him, looking for the trap, looking for the angle. But all I saw was my son, tired and humbled, trying to prove himself. That's good, I said carefully. I'm proud of you for that. I also started seeing a therapist, he continued. About Mom. About the grief I never dealt with. About why I treated you the way I did. He paused. She helped me understand something. I wasn't angry at you for mourning Mom. I was angry at myself for not knowing how to. My throat tightened. Adrian? I'm not asking for anything, he interrupted. I'm not asking to move in or for money or for a relationship we're not ready for. I just wanted you to know that I'm doing the work. That I meant what I said. For the first time since that terrible night, I felt something shift. Just a little. Like a door that had been locked tight was starting to crack open. "Keep doing the work," I said quietly, "and we'll see where it goes." He nodded, a small smile on his face. "That's all I can ask for." He left, and I stood there watching his truck disappear down the driveway, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Oh, do you think people really can change, or are they just good at pretending until they get what they want? Share your thoughts below. That night, I sat in Victor's study, my study now, looking through his personal papers. Letters he'd written but never sent. Journals where he'd documented his regrets. Notes about his children and the disappointments that had piled up over decades. In one journal entry dated 3 weeks before he died, Victor had written, "Silas Wren is the son I should have raised. Loyal, kind, humble. He doesn't want anything from me except to do his job well. That's rarer than gold." I closed the journal, tears burning my eyes. Victor had seen something in me I hadn't seen in myself. He'd seen worth, value. A man deserving of a second chance. And now I had to honor that. I had to prove to the court, to Robert and Caroline, to the whole damn world that Victor hadn't made a mistake. That loyalty and kindness and basic human decency were worth more than blood ties and hollow promises. The phone rang. "Miss Chin. We just got new evidence," she said, her voice excited. Victor recorded conversations with his children. Hours of them. He kept audio files on his computer, labeled and dated. "And Silas, they're devastating." "What do you mean?" "Robert asking for money to cover gambling debts. Caroline threatening to put Victor in a nursing home if he didn't update his will in her favor. Conversations where they openly discuss waiting for him to die so they can liquidate everything. It's all there. Every ugly, greedy word." I sat back in my chair, stunned. Victor had known. He'd documented everything. He'd prepared for this battle even though he knew he wouldn't be here to fight it. "This changes everything," Miss Chin continued. "With this evidence, their case falls apart. We can prove they're exactly what Victor said they were, vultures waiting for a corpse." "When does the judge hear this?" I asked. "Pre-trial hearing next week. If it goes the way I think it will, this whole lawsuit might get dismissed before we even get to trial." I should have felt relieved, victorious, but all I felt was sad. Sad that Victor's children had become the kind of people who'd earned this kind of evidence against them. Sad that greed had poisoned what should have been love. "Thank you," I said, "for everything you're doing." "Thank you for giving me a case worth fighting for," she replied. "Not many people would stand up to this kind of pressure." Victor chose well. After we hung up, I walked out to the garden. The same garden where I'd read Victor's letter. The same garden where I'd made the decision to fight instead of run. The stars were out, bright and clear. And for a moment I imagined Miriam up there somewhere, watching. Proud of the man I was becoming. The man she'd always believed I could be. "I'm doing it," I whispered to the night sky. "I'm fighting back. Just like you taught me." The wind rustled through the trees and I swear I felt her presence. Just for a second. Just long enough to know I wasn't alone. Inside the house, my phone buzzed with a text. "Adrian, thank you for today. For giving me a chance. I won't let you down. I promise." I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "I believe you. Keep going. And maybe, just maybe, we really could rebuild what had been broken. Not the same as before. Nothing would ever be the same. But something new. Something stronger. Something forged from pain and loss and the hard work of becoming better." The lawsuit was still coming. Robert and Caroline weren't done fighting. And there would be more battles ahead. But for the first time since Miriam died, I felt ready. Ready to face whatever came next. Ready to honor the legacy Victor had given me. Ready to prove that loyalty and love were worth more than any amount of money. Because Victor had been right about one thing. Family isn't determined by blood. It's determined by who shows up when everything falls apart. Who stays when everyone else leaves. Who fights for you when you can't fight for yourself. And I was done letting blood relatives who acted like strangers define what family meant. The pretrial hearing happened on a Tuesday morning. Cold rain hammering against the courthouse windows, the kind of weather that matches the mood of a battle about to begin. Robert and Caroline sat on one side of the courtroom with their legal team. I sat on the other with Miss Chin. The air between us was thick with hostility. Caroline wouldn't even look at me. Robert stared daggers, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. The judge, an older woman named Henderson with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen every kind of lie, reviewed the documents in front of her. Miss Chin had submitted Victor's recordings the week before. Now we waited to see if they'd be admitted as evidence. "I've listened to the audio files," Judge Henderson said, her voice cutting through the tension. "And I've reviewed the transcripts. Mr. Garrett, does your client have a response to these recordings?" Mr. Garrett, Robert and Caroline's lead attorney, stood up. Smooth. Confident. Expensive. "Your Honor, we believe these recordings were obtained illegally. Mr. Alcott recorded private conversations without the knowledge or consent of our clients. That violates wiretapping laws." Ms. Chin rose. "Your Honor, New York is a one-party consent state. Mr. Alcott was fully within his rights to record conversations he was part of. Furthermore, these recordings were made in his own home, on his own property, with his own equipment. There's no legal violation here." Judge Henderson nodded. "I agree with Ms. Chin. The recordings are admissible." She turned to Robert and Caroline. "I'm going to play a selection of these recordings for the court, and I want both of you to listen carefully." The first recording started playing through the courtroom speakers. Victor's voice, weak but clear, talking to Robert. "Dad, I need $50,000, Robert's voice said. "The casino's going to break my legs if I don't pay up by Friday." "This is the third time this year," Victor replied. "When does it stop, Robert? When do you take responsibility for your choices? You're a billionaire. 50 grand is nothing to you. Are you really going to let your own son get hurt because you're too cheap to help?" "I'm not cheap. I'm tired. Tired of bailing you out. Tired of being treated like an ATM instead of a father." "Then what the hell good are you?" Silence. Then Victor's voice, broken. "Get out of my house." The recording stopped. The courtroom was dead silent. Caroline had gone pale. Robert was staring at his hands. Judge Henderson's expression was stone. "Let's hear another." The second recording was Caroline. Younger sounding. More calculated. "Daddy, we need to talk about your will," she said. "Not this again," Victor sighed. "I'm serious. You're getting older. What happens when you can't take care of yourself anymore? Who's going to make decisions for you?" "I'm perfectly capable of making my own decisions." "Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're isolated. Alone. Stubborn. Maybe it's time we looked into assisted living facilities. Somewhere you'd be safe." "You mean somewhere you could control me?" "That's not fair." "Isn't it? You visit me twice a year, Caroline. You call me when you need money. And now you're threatening to put me in a home because I won't change my will to suit you. Tell me how that's not about control." Caroline's voice turned cold. "You're going to regret this. When you're old and helpless and alone, don't come crying to me." "I won't," Victor said quietly. "I've already accepted that my children don't love me. They just love what I can give them." The recording ended. Caroline was crying now. Real tears this time, but not from grief. From shame. Judge Henderson removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. "I've heard enough. Mr. Garrett, your clients are accusing Mr. Wren of manipulating their father and isolating him from family. But these recordings paint a very different picture. They paint a picture of two adult children who viewed their father as a source of income rather than a parent deserving of respect." "Your Honor," Mr. Garrett started. "I'm not finished," Judge Henderson interrupted. "I've also reviewed the visitor logs, phone records, and medical documentation. All of it supports Mr. Wren's account. All of it contradicts your client's claims. This lawsuit is not about justice. It's about money. And I will not waste this court's time on a case built on lies and greed." Robert shot to his feet. "You can't just dismiss this. We have rights. We're his children." "Sit down, Mr. Alcott," Judge Henderson said coldly, "or I'll hold you in contempt." He sat, his face burning red with rage and humiliation. "This case is dismissed," Judge Henderson declared. "Mr. Alcott's will stands as written. Mr. Wren is the rightful heir to the estate, and there will be no further challenges without substantial new evidence, which I doubt exists. Court is adjourned." The gavel came down like thunder. It was over. Just like that. Months of stress and fear and fighting ended in less than an hour. Miss Chin turned to me, grinning. "We won." I couldn't speak, couldn't process. All I could do was sit there, feeling the weight of the world lift off my shoulders. Robert and Caroline stormed out of the courtroom without looking back. Their lawyers followed, already discussing appeals and options that would go nowhere. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Cameras flashing. Microphones thrust in my face. Questions shouted from every direction. "Mr. Wren, how does it feel to win? Do you have any message for Robert and Caroline Alcott? What are you going to do with the money?" Miss Chin pushed through them, creating a path to the car. "No comment. Mr. Wren has no statement at this time." We drove back to the estate in silence. I stared out the window watching the city blur past, still not quite believing it was real. You did it, Miss Chin said finally. You honored Victor's wishes. You stood up to people who wanted to crush you and you won. I didn't do it alone, I said. Victor did most of the work. He knew this would happen. He prepared for it. He prepared the evidence. But you had to be strong enough to use it. A lot of people would have folded under that pressure. Given them something just to make it go away. But you didn't. I thought about the park bench. About the slap. About all the times I'd been pushed around and made to feel small. I was tired of being weak. You were never weak, Miss Chin said. You were grieving. There's a difference. When we got back to the estate there was a car in the driveway. Adrian's truck. He was sitting on the front steps, still in his work clothes, covered in dirt and grass stains. When he saw me he stood up. I heard the news, he said. It's all over the radio. You won. Yeah, I said. I won. I'm glad. He hesitated. I know I don't have the right to be here. But I wanted to tell you something. Something I should have said a long time ago. I waited. You were a good father, Adrian said, his voice thick with emotion. The best father. And I threw that away because I was too weak to deal with my own pain. I blamed you for things that weren't your fault. I let a woman poison my mind against you. And I hurt you in ways I can never take back. He wiped his eyes. But I want you to know that I see it now. I see what I lost. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to become the man you and Mom raised me to be. Something broke open inside me. All the anger. All the hurt. All the grief I'd been carrying since that terrible night when he'd slapped me. Come here, I said. Adrian closed the distance between us and I pulled him into a hug. He fell apart in my arms, sobbing like a child, all the guilt and shame pouring out of him in waves. I'm sorry, he kept saying. I'm so sorry, Dad. I know, I whispered. I know you are. We stood there on the front steps of Victor's estate, my estate, father and son, broken and rebuilding, crying together for the first time since Miriam died. And for the first time in forever, it felt like maybe we could survive this. Maybe we could find our way back to each other. Not the way we were before. That was gone. But something new. Something forged from pain and forgiveness and the hard work of healing. Have you ever had to forgive someone who hurt you deeply? Was it worth it or did they let you down again? Tell me your story in the comments. That night Adrian and I sat in the garden. Talking. Really talking. About Miriam. About grief. About the mistakes we'd both made. About Cassandra and how she'd exploited his weakness. About the therapy he was doing and the progress he was making. I'm not asking to come back into your life all at once, Adrian said. I know I have to earn that. But maybe we could have dinner sometimes? Talk on the phone? Start small and see where it goes? I'd like that, I said. I'd like that a lot. He smiled, a real smile, and for the first time I saw glimpses of the boy he used to be. The one who wasn't twisted by greed and grief. The one who still had a chance to be good. Later, after Adrian left, I went back to Victor's study and pulled out his journal. The last entry written 2 days before he died. If you're reading this, Silas, then I'm gone. And if my plan worked, you're now the owner of everything I built. Don't waste it. Don't let it corrupt you the way it corrupted my children. Use it to build something good. Something that honors the people you've loved and lost. And remember, wealth without purpose is just numbers in an account. But wealth with purpose can change lives. Including your own. I closed the journal and made a decision. Victor had given me more than money. He'd given me a chance to matter. To make a difference. To turn pain into purpose. And I wasn't going to waste it. The phone started ringing at 6 in the morning. Different number, but I knew who it was before I even looked at the screen. Cassandra. I'd blocked her original number weeks ago, but she kept finding new ways to reach me. Burner phones. Friends' phones. Even pay phones like we were living in some kind of 1990s thriller. This time I answered. Just to see what she'd say now that the lawsuit was over and there was no legal path left for her to exploit. Silas, she purred, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. I've been trying to reach you. I noticed. 69 missed calls last time I counted. Now you're up to what? 80? 90? I just wanted to talk. To apologize for how things went down between us. I laughed. Actually laughed. You want to apologize? For what exactly? For convincing my son to treat me like garbage? For laughing when he slapped me? For telling me to go live on the street? Silence. Then her voice turned sharp. Cold. The real Cassandra showing through. You think you're so special now, don't you? You think because some old man left you his money that you're better than everyone else. I think I'm done being treated like dirt by people who don't deserve my time. Adrian misses you, she tried. He talks about you all the time. He regrets everything. If you'd just give him another chance. Adrian and I have already talked, I interrupted. Without you. And we're working things out. On our own terms. You're not part of that equation. You can't just cut me out. I was with Adrian for 2 years. I'm practically family. Family doesn't abandon people when the money runs out, I said. You left Adrian the second you realized there was nothing to gain. That's not family. That's parasitic. Her voice turned venomous. You're going to regret this. You think you've won but you haven't. I'll find a way to get what I'm owed. You're not owed anything. Adrian gave me his time. His love. His devotion. That's worth something. Then maybe you should have valued it when you had it, I said. Instead of treating him like a stepping stone to my bank account. I hung up before she could respond, blocked the new number, and made a mental note to have Miss Chen look into getting a restraining order if the calls continued. But even as I did, I felt something strange. Not anger. Not fear. Just pity. Pity for a woman so consumed by greed that she'd burned every bridge and destroyed every relationship in her pursuit of money that was never hers to begin with. That afternoon, I met with Miss Chen at her office to discuss the estate's future. Now that the lawsuit was over, there were decisions to make. Business decisions. Investment decisions. Philanthropic decisions. Victor's portfolio is extensive, Miss Chen explained, spreading documents across her desk. Real estate holdings in 6 states. Stock investments worth hundreds of millions. Business partnerships. Offshore accounts. It's going to take months just to get a complete picture of everything. I stared at the numbers, feeling overwhelmed. I don't know anything about managing this kind of wealth. That's what financial advisors are for. But first, you need to decide what you want to do with it. Do you want to maintain Victor's businesses? Sell them? Invest in something new? Donate to charity? This is your legacy now. You get to shape it however you want. I thought about Victor's last journal entry. About purpose. About using wealth to change lives. I want to start a foundation, I said. For widows and widowers. People who've lost their spouse and don't have support systems. People who feel like the world moved on without them. Miss Chen smiled. That's beautiful. What would the foundation do? Counseling services. Financial assistance. Job training. Whatever people need to get back on their feet. I paused. Miriam used to volunteer at a grief support group. She always said the hardest part of losing someone isn't the loss itself. It's the loneliness that comes after. I want to fight that loneliness. Victor would have loved that, Miss Chen said softly. He left you this money hoping you'd do something meaningful with it. And you are. Over the next few weeks, we set up the Miriam Wren Foundation for Grief Support and Recovery. I hired therapists, social workers, and financial advisors to help people who were drowning in the aftermath of loss. We opened centers in 3 cities with plans to expand to more. The first person who walked through the doors was a woman named Sarah, mid-50s. Lost her husband to a heart attack 6 months earlier. She'd been living in her car because she couldn't afford rent after the medical bills wiped out their savings. I don't understand, she said, crying as we sat in the counseling room. Why would you do this for strangers? Because I've been where you are, I told her. And I know what it's like to feel invisible. To feel like no one cares if you survive or not. Someone gave me a chance when I had nothing. Now I'm passing that chance on to you. We helped her find housing. Got her into a job training program. Connected her with a grief counselor. 6 months later, she sent me a letter thanking me for saving her life. That letter became the first of hundreds. People reaching out to tell me their stories. To thank the foundation for giving them hope when they had none. To tell me they were surviving because someone finally cared. And every time I read one of those letters, I thought of Miriam. Of how proud she'd be. Of how this was the legacy she would have wanted. Not money or power, but people helping people through the darkest moments of their lives. Adrian started volunteering at the foundation. Not because I asked him to, but because he wanted to. He'd lead job training workshops, teaching people skills he'd learned from his landscaping work. He'd share his own story of loss and redemption, showing others that change was possible. One evening, after a particularly emotional session, Adrian and I sat in my office. I'm proud of you, I said, for the man you're becoming. He smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. I wish Mom could see this. See us rebuilding. She can, I said. I believe that. Do you think she'd forgive me? For what I did to you? I thought about Miriam, about her endless capacity for love and grace. Your mother never stopped believing in second chances. She'd forgive you in a heartbeat. But more than that, she'd be proud of you for doing the work to become better. Adrian's eyes filled with tears. I miss her so much, Dad. Every single day. Me too, son. Me too. We sat there in comfortable silence, two men who'd lost the same woman in different ways, both trying to honor her memory by being better than they were. Do you believe grief can bring people together, or does it push them apart? What's been your experience? Share below. One Saturday afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mr. Wren? A woman's voice. Older. Uncertain. Speaking. My name is Dorothy Alcott. I'm Victor's sister. I know we've never met, but I wanted to reach out. I sat up straighter. Victor had mentioned his sister once or twice, but said they'd lost touch years ago. I heard about the lawsuit, Dorothy continued, and about how you won, about how my nephew and niece acted. I'm calling to apologize for them, and to thank you. Thank me? For being there for Victor when his own family wasn't. For showing him kindness in his final months. Robert and Caroline called me trying to get me to join their lawsuit. They wanted me to claim Victor was senile, that you'd manipulated him. But I refused. Why? I asked. Because I talked to Victor 2 weeks before he died. He called me out of the blue after years of silence. And he told me about you. About how you reminded him what loyalty looked like. About how he was leaving everything to you because you'd earned it. She paused. He sounded happy, Mr. Wren. For the first time in decades, my brother sounded genuinely happy. That's because of you. My throat tightened. I just did my job. No, you did more than that. You gave him something his children never did. You gave him respect. And for that, our family owes you a debt we can never repay. After we hung up, I sat there thinking about Victor. About how he'd spent his final months not bitter or angry, but content. Knowing he'd found someone who cared about him as a person, not a bank account. That night, I went to the garden. The same spot where I'd read Victor's letter all those months ago. The same spot where everything had changed. I thought about the journey. From the park bench to the estate. From broken widower to foundation founder. From lost father to rebuilding son. It hadn't been easy. It hadn't been clean. But it had been worth it. Cassandra called again that night. 97th call by my count. This time I didn't block the number. I just let it ring. Let her waste her time and energy on someone who'd stopped caring what she thought. Eventually she'd give up. Eventually she'd find some other target, some other person to manipulate and exploit. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I'd fought my battles. Won my wars. And now I was focused on the only thing that mattered, building something good from the ashes of everything I'd lost. 3 months after the lawsuit ended, something unexpected happened. Robert Alcott showed up at the foundation. I was in the middle of a staff meeting when reception called up. Mr. Wren, there's someone here to see you. Says his name is Robert Alcott. The room went quiet. Everyone knew who Robert was. Everyone knew what he tried to do. Tell him I'll be down in 5 minutes, I said. I found Robert in the lobby looking smaller somehow. Older. His expensive suit was wrinkled. His face was drawn. He looked like a man who'd been hollowed out from the inside. What are you doing here? I asked, keeping my distance. I needed to see you, he said. To say something I should have said months ago. I'm listening. He took a breath. I was wrong. About everything. About you. About my father. About what mattered. His voice cracked. After the lawsuit, Caroline and I stopped speaking. She blamed me for losing. Said I should have fought harder. And I realized, we're destroying each other over money that was never really ours. Over a man we never really loved. I didn't say anything. Just waited. My father was right about me, Robert continued. I am greedy. I am selfish. I treated him like an ATM instead of a person. And when he gave everything to you, I was furious because it forced me to look at who I really am. And I didn't like what I saw. So why are you here? I asked. Because I want to change, he said. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything from you. But I saw what you're doing with this foundation, and I wanted you to know that my father made the right choice. You're honoring his memory better than I ever could. I studied his face looking for manipulation, looking for the angle. But all I saw was regret. Raw, painful regret. You can't undo what you did, I said. Can't erase the lawsuit or the things you said about me in court. I know. But if you're serious about changing, if you really want to be better, then prove it. Not to me. To yourself. And maybe someday you'll be able to look in the mirror without hating what you see. Robert nodded slowly. Thank you. For not slamming the door in my face. That's more than I deserved. He turned to leave, but I stopped him. Robert. He looked back. Your father never stopped hoping you'd become better. Even at the end, when he changed his will, part of him still hoped you'd prove him wrong. Don't waste that hope. It's the last thing he gave you. Robert's eyes filled with tears. He nodded once, then walked out of the building. I watched him go, feeling something I didn't expect. Not forgiveness, that would take time if it came at all. But understanding. Understanding that greed and bitterness could destroy anyone if they let it. That becoming a better person was a choice you had to make every single day. That evening, I had dinner with Adrian at a small restaurant near the foundation. Nothing fancy. Just burgers and fries and conversation. Robert came to see me today, I said. Adrian looked up, surprised. What did he want? To apologize. To admit he was wrong. Do you believe him? I thought about it. I think he believes he's wrong. Whether he actually changes remains to be seen. But at least he's trying. Like me, Adrian said quietly. Like you, I agreed. And you're proof that people can change. That redemption isn't just a word, it's something you earn through action. Adrian set down his burger, his expression serious. I need to tell you something. Cassandra reached out to me last week. My jaw tightened. What did she want? Money, obviously. She's broke. Living with some guy she met online. She wanted me to convince you to give her a settlement. Said she deserved compensation for the time she spent with our family. What did you tell her? I told her no. I told her she destroyed enough already and that I wasn't going to help her destroy anything else. He paused. She didn't take it well. Called me weak. Said I was choosing you over her because of the inheritance. And what did you say? Adrian smiled. I told her I was choosing you because you're my father. Because the inheritance doesn't matter if I lose the only family I have left. Then I blocked her number. Something warm spread through my chest. Pride. Real, genuine pride in my son. You did good, Adrian. I learned from the best, he said. Mom always told me that family isn't about what you can get from people. It's about who you choose to stand by when things get hard. We finished dinner talking about the foundation, about Adrian's job, about the future we were building together. And for the first time since Miriam died, the future didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like something to look forward to. When I got home that night, there was a package waiting on the doorstep. No return address. Just my name written in handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was a letter and a photograph. The photograph showed Victor and a young woman, Dorothy, I realized his sister, standing in front of the estate when they were young. Both smiling. Both looking like they had their whole lives ahead of them. The letter was from Dorothy. Dear Silas, I found this photograph while going through old family albums. I thought you should have it. This was taken the summer before Victor started building his empire. Before money changed him. Before he lost himself in the pursuit of wealth. Look at his face in this picture. That's who he was before greed and ambition consumed everything. That's the brother I loved. When Victor called me before he died, he sounded like this version of himself again. Lighter. Freer. At peace. You gave him that. You reminded him of who he used to be before everything went wrong. I don't know if there's an afterlife, but if there is, I believe Victor is watching over you. I believe he's proud of what you're doing with his legacy. And I believe he's grateful that his final chapter was spent with someone who saw him as human rather than as a means to an end. Thank you for giving my brother a good death. Not many people get that gift. With gratitude, Dorothy. I stared at the photograph for a long time. Victor looked so young. So full of hope. So different from the bitter, cynical old man I'd met. What had happened to turn him into someone his own children despised? How many decisions, how many compromises, how many betrayals had it taken to build an empire at the cost of everything else? And then I thought about the choice I was making. The choice to use Victor's wealth not to build bigger, but to help others build themselves back up. To turn money into meaning. To transform tragedy into purpose. That was the difference. Victor had spent his life accumulating. I was going to spend mine giving back. The next morning, I called a meeting with the foundation's board. I want to expand, I said. Open 10 more centers across the country. Increase our counseling services. Create a scholarship program for people who lost spouses and need job training. That's going to cost millions, one board member said. Then we'll spend millions, I replied. Money sitting in an account doesn't change lives. Money in action does. Over the next 6 months, the foundation grew faster than anyone expected. We helped hundreds of people. Widows who'd lost everything. Widowers who'd given up hope. People drowning in grief who just needed someone to throw them a lifeline. And with each person we helped, I felt Miriam's presence. Felt her pride. Felt her love guiding me toward something bigger than myself. Adrian became the foundation's community outreach director. He traveled to different cities, sharing his story, recruiting volunteers, building programs from the ground up. He was good at it. Better than he'd ever been at anything else. "I think I finally found my purpose," he told me one night after a particularly successful fundraising event. "All those years I wasted chasing money and status, I was looking in the wrong places. The purpose was right here. Helping people." "Your mother would be so proud of you," I said. "I hope so," Adrian whispered. "I hope wherever she is she can see this. See us." "She can," I said with certainty. "I feel her every day." One afternoon I got an unexpected call. "Caroline Alcott. I know you probably don't want to hear from me," she said, her voice small. "But I need to say something." "I'm listening." "I was in the grocery store yesterday. I saw a flyer for your foundation. For the grief center you opened downtown. And I went." She paused. "I sat in on a support group. Just to see what it was like. And Silas, it broke me. Hearing these people talk about loss, about pain, about feeling forgotten. I realized that's what I did to my father. I forgot him. I forgot he was a person with feelings and needs beyond what he could give me." "What do you want, Caroline?" "Nothing," she said quickly. "I'm not calling for money or forgiveness or anything like that. I just wanted you to know that what you're doing matters. That you're saving people my father and I never bothered to see. And that he was right to choose you." I didn't know what to say. Caroline, who'd sobbed fake tears in court, who'd tried to destroy me, was admitting I'd been right all along. "Thank you for saying that," I finally managed. "I'm selling my house," she continued. "Downsizing. I'm going to donate some of the proceeds to your foundation. It won't fix what I did, but maybe it'll help someone else." After we hung up, I sat there stunned. Victor's children, both of them, were changing. Not because I demanded it or because they expected something in return, but because seeing what loyalty and purpose looked like had forced them to confront who they'd become. When someone who hurt you comes back and genuinely changes, does it heal the wound or just remind you of the pain? What do you think? That night, alone in the study, I pulled out Miriam's wedding ring. The one I'd carried with me from the park bench to the estate. The one I'd held onto through everything. "I did it," I whispered. "I survived. I built something good from all the pain. And I'm teaching our son to be the man you always believed he could be." The wind outside picked up, rattling the windows. And in that sound I heard her voice, clear as day. "I'm proud of you, Silas. Keep going." Tears streamed down my face. But they weren't tears of grief anymore. They were tears of gratitude. Gratitude for the life I'd lived with her. Gratitude for the second chance Victor had given me. Gratitude for the son who'd found his way back from the darkness. I wasn't the same man who'd slept on that park bench. I wasn't the broken widower who'd accepted a slap from his own son without fighting back. I wasn't the person who'd believed he had nothing left to give. I was Silas Wren, founder of a foundation that changed lives. Father to a son who was becoming a better man every day. Keeper of Victor Alcott's legacy and Miriam's memory. And I was just getting started. Cassandra called one more time. The 100th call. I let it ring. Let her scream into the void. Let her realize that some doors, once closed, never open again. Because I'd learned the most important lesson of all. You can't build a future by clinging to people who only wanted to tear you down. You build it by surrounding yourself with those who lift you up. By choosing loyalty over blood. By choosing purpose over profit. By choosing to be better than the worst thing that ever happened to you. And that's exactly what I was going to do. 2 years later, I stood in the ballroom of the Miriam Wren Foundation's flagship center. 500 people filled the room. Donors, volunteers, people we'd helped, and staff members who'd made our mission their calling. Adrian stood beside me, wearing a suit he'd bought with his own money. He looked confident. Strong. Nothing like the broken, manipulative man who'd slapped me in that kitchen lifetimes ago. "You ready for this?" he asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," I said. Tonight was the Foundation's second annual gala. A celebration of everything we'd accomplished and a fundraiser for everything still to come. In 2 years, we'd opened 23 centers across 15 states. We'd helped over 3,000 people rebuild their lives after loss. We'd created jobs, provided counseling, offered hope where there was none. And it all started because a dying billionaire saw something in a broken man that no one else bothered to look for. The lights dimmed. I walked to the podium. 500 faces turned toward me, waiting. 2 years ago, I began. I was sleeping on a park bench. I'd lost my wife to cancer. Lost my home to a son who'd forgotten what family meant. Lost myself to grief so deep I couldn't see a way out. The room was silent. Every eye locked on me. I took a job as a caregiver because I was desperate. Because it was the only option I had left. And that job introduced me to a man named Victor Alcott, a billionaire who'd spent his life building an empire but had forgotten to build relationships. We were both lonely. Both broken. Both wondering if anyone would remember us when we were gone. I paused, gathering my thoughts. Victor taught me something in his final months. He taught me that wealth without purpose is meaningless. That family isn't about blood, it's about loyalty. That second chances are real if you're brave enough to take them. My voice strengthened. When he died, he left me everything. Not because I manipulated him. Not because I asked for it. But because I showed him basic human decency when everyone else showed him greed. Applause rippled through the room. I raised a hand to quiet them. But this foundation isn't about me or Victor. It's about every person in this room who's lost someone they loved. Every widow who doesn't know how to pay rent. Every widower who sits alone at night wondering if the pain will ever stop. Every child who lost a parent and doesn't understand why the world kept spinning when theirs stopped completely. My eyes found Adrian in the crowd. He was crying. Proud, healing tears. My wife Miriam believed that the measure of a life isn't what you accumulate, it's what you give away. She volunteered at grief support groups. She held hands with strangers who were falling apart. She showed up when everyone else disappeared. And this foundation is her legacy as much as it is Victor's. I pulled out a photograph. The one Dorothy had sent me. Young Victor, smiling, untouched by greed and ambition. This is who Victor was before money changed him. Before he lost the people who mattered chasing things that didn't. And at the end of his life, he chose to return to this version of himself, the version that valued people over profit. I looked out at the crowd. That's what we're doing here. We're choosing people. We're choosing purpose. We're choosing to take pain and transform it into something beautiful. The applause was thunderous. People stood. Some were crying. Some were smiling. All of them understood what we were building. After my speech, person after person approached me, sharing their stories, thanking me, telling me how the foundation had saved them. Sarah, the first woman we'd helped, was now a counselor at our Chicago center. She grabbed my hands. You saved my life, Mr. Wren. 2 years ago I wanted to die. Now I'm saving others. That's because of you. A man named Marcus told me about losing his husband and being kicked out by his in-laws. Our foundation gave him housing, job training, and counseling. Now he ran a support group for LGBTQ widowers. A young woman named Jennifer talked about losing her mother and dropping out of college because she couldn't afford it. Our scholarship program had sent her back to school. She was graduating in May. Story after story. Life after life. People who'd been drowning now helping others swim. Later in the evening, I found Adrian standing alone on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. You okay? I asked. He turned, smiling. Better than okay. I'm proud, Dad. Proud of you. Proud of what we built. Proud of who I'm becoming. You should be. You've worked hard for this. I wish Mom could see it, he said softly. Wish she could see us. Together again. Stronger than before. I put my arm around his shoulder. She sees it. I know she does. We stood there in comfortable silence, father and son, watching the city breathe beneath us. Cassandra called me again last month, Adrian said suddenly. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to stress you out. What did she want? To apologize. Said she'd been in therapy. Said she realized how toxic she'd been. Asked if we could talk. What did you say? I said no. I told her I forgave her for my own peace, but that didn't mean I wanted her back in my life. Some doors are better left closed. I squeezed his shoulder. You're wiser than I was at your age. I learned from watching you, he said. You could have turned bitter after everything that happened. Could have let the pain twist you into something ugly. But you didn't. You chose to build instead of destroy. That's the lesson I'll carry for the rest of my life. The next morning, I drove to Miriam's grave. I'd started visiting every Sunday, bringing flowers, talking to her, keeping her memory alive. I sat on the grass, my back against her headstone, and told her everything. About the gala. About Adrian's growth. About the foundation's success. About Victor's legacy living on through the lives we changed. We did it, I whispered. We survived the worst thing that ever happened to us. And we turned it into something beautiful. The wind carried the scent of roses, white roses, her favorite. And in that moment, I felt her presence stronger than ever. Not as a ghost, not as a memory, but as a part of me. A part that would never fade. A part that guided every decision, every action, every choice. I love you, Miriam, I said. I'll always love you. But I'm learning to live again. And I think you'd be happy about that. A cardinal landed on her headstone. Bright red against gray marble. Miriam used to say cardinals were messengers from heaven. Signs that loved ones were watching over us. The bird looked at me for a long moment, then flew away, disappearing into the morning sky. I smiled. I know you're proud. Thank you for never giving up on me. When I got back to the estate, there was a letter waiting. From Robert Alcott. Dear Silas, I'm writing to tell you that I've sold my properties and paid off my debts. I'm living in a small apartment now, working a regular job for the first time in my life. And I'm learning what it means to earn something instead of expecting it to be handed to me. I've started volunteering at a homeless shelter. I see my Father's face in every person who comes through those doors. I see the loneliness, the desperation, the hope that anyone will show them basic human kindness. You showed my Father that kindness, and now I'm trying to pass it forward. Not to earn your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve that. But to honor the lesson he tried to teach me before he died, that character matters more than wealth. Thank you for not giving up on the idea that people can change. Watching you has shown me it's possible. Respectfully, Robert. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my desk drawer. Next to Victor's final letter to me. Next to the photograph Dorothy had sent. These were the reminders. The proof that even in the darkest moments, redemption was possible. That people could choose to be better. That legacy wasn't about money. It was about the lives you touched and the changes you inspired. That evening, the Foundation's board met to discuss expansion plans. 23 centers had become 50 in the strategic plan. Our budget had tripled. Our impact was spreading like ripples in a pond, reaching people we'd never meet but whose lives we'd forever change. This is ambitious, one board member said, studying the projections. Victor Alcott didn't build an empire by playing it safe, I replied. And neither will we. We're not just building centers. We're building a movement. A reminder that grief doesn't have to destroy you, it can transform you. The vote was unanimous. 50 centers. 10 states. Thousands more lives saved. As the meeting ended and people filed out, Miss Chin lingered behind. You've done something remarkable, Silas, she said. You took a gift most people would have squandered and turned it into something that will outlive all of us. Victor made it possible, I said. I'm just the steward. No, she corrected. Victor provided the resources. But you provided the vision. The heart. The purpose. That's all you. After she left, I sat alone in the study, Victor's study, Miriam's memory, my future, and thought about the journey. From park bench to empire. From broken father to foundation builder. From man who'd lost everything to man who'd gained purpose. The phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. For a moment I hesitated. But then I answered. Mr. Wren? A young woman's voice. Shaking. Scared. My name is Emily. I just lost my husband in a car accident. I have 2 kids and no idea how I'm going to survive. Someone gave me your foundation's number. Can you help me? I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of her pain. Remembering my own. Yes, I said. We can help you. Tell me where you are and I'll make sure someone gets to you today. You're not alone anymore, Emily. We've got you. As I took down her information and connected her with our nearest center, I understood something profound. This was why Victor had chosen me. Not because I was special. Not because I was smart or business savvy or deserving. But because I knew what it felt like to be drowning. And because I'd never forget. If you've made it this far, thank you for being part of Silas's journey. His story reminds us that life can break us down, but it's what we build from the pieces that defines us. Have you ever experienced a moment that completely changed your life's direction? Share your story in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And hey, if this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. We've got more powerful stories coming your way, stories about resilience, redemption, and the strength of the human spirit. Hit that subscribe button and join our family. Together we're building something beautiful. One story, one comment, one connection at a time. Remember, loyalty matters more than blood, purpose matters more than profit, and love, real love, never truly dies. It transforms into something bigger than we ever imagined. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. As I hung up the phone and watched the sun set over the estate, I whispered one final prayer to the universe. Thank you. For the pain that made me stronger. For the loss that taught me gratitude. For the slap that woke me up. For Victor's trust. For Adrian's redemption. For Miriam's love that still guides me every single day. The cardinal returned, perching on the windowsill, looking at me with those bright, knowing eyes. And I smiled. Because I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. And so would everyone who walked through our foundation's doors, carrying their grief like stones, looking for someone to help them set it down. We'd be there. Every single time. That was the legacy. That was the promise. That was love in action. And it would never, ever stop.